Hey everyone, it's Book of Katherine. I hope you're doing well. I just saw online a therapist that had some really good things to say in an area that I care about that's done a lot of things that I know has definitely revolutionized my life, but it was in the area of PTSD. And they were lamenting the fact that veterans and soldiers who come home from war don't actually go and get treatment for PTSD. But while they were lamenting that, they were going off about politics. And I was just like, oh, this is bringing back memories. And the thing is that I realized, and I had totally forgotten this, I had to actually like clue in and think. It took me a while. I had to like rewind and listen to the names because they're rattling off all these names. I had to rewind and listen to the names again and be like, who are the names? Because I thought maybe when they were mentioning the politics, I thought they were mentioning both sides of the aisle. And then I was like, wait a minute, as they continued on, I realized I don't think they're mentioning both sides of the aisle because they were talking about traumatizing society. And I was like, yeah, we're constantly being traumatized as a society with all this negative media coverage. And then I was like, I think they might be only mentioning one side of the aisle here. Let me rewind because I know names now. And I was like rewinding and I was like, oh my gosh, they're mentioning one side of the aisle. And therein, I was like, this reminds me of when I went to therapy. And that's not what it was. Well, and then later on into the, I was just like, why would those poor military veterans ever go to you if you believe this thing about like, there's this like pro-military side or whatever of the news media, and then you're like so against it, and then you're like, why don't they come to therapy? Why don't they come to therapy? And I just saw it coming. I saw it carry the part that I knew about because I didn't know any of these names when I was in therapy at all. I didn't even have cable. But I could feel it coming. And lo and behold, they went exactly where I thought they were going to go. And they went after religion or like higher power and stuff like that. Now, I have overcome addiction in my life. And I've talked to you guys about that. Like I have had to overcome addiction. And so I have had to do the 12 steps. That means higher power, you guys. Like I've talked about that earlier on in my channel. I was like, I do have faith. I haven't talked a lot about but if you've listened to my channel, I've talked about addiction and I've talked like, obviously like that's in there. Like obviously that's like higher power. Like that's the furthest I've ever said about it because that's my own personal crap. But it's so funny. The same person was talking about the genius of the 12-step program and how genius the 12-step program is. And I was just like, right. But when I went to go ahead and get therapy in the exact same methodologies that this person was praising, when I went to a person for that, when I went to a person with this amazing methodologies, they were actually, I'll never forget it. After overcoming addiction for myself, and I had other stuff to get through, I'll never forget it. In the therapist's office, like I had just forgotten all of this until watching this today. In the therapist's office, they were like, and now we have to take care of like this basic higher power stuff. Like that had to be part of my healing. And I'll never forget being like, just smiling and nodding and just being like, that's their thing. That's not the job of a therapist to be like, now I'm going to convert you to my religion. And you could tell what religion they were. It was all over their office or whatever, but they had a methodology that was working for me. And I was like, I'm here for that methodology. That methodology is working for me. Now, this other methodology worked for me, got me out of addictions. This other methodology is working for me. But it was very clear that they hated. They had a very serious problem with and I'm just like, I'm understanding it much more now that I'm researching and actually reaching concern. I didn't understand any of it at all. And I am finally like watching this tape today. I was like, oh, I get it now. Like, I get it now. I kind of finally understand. Like Jordan Peterson, is he like I guess you guys are going to have to tell me, like lawyers, like according to Shapiro, lawyers are leftists. And I guess because I was watching Jordan Peterson, I didn't think that therapists were leftists, but I'm really getting the impression that therapists are leftists. Like I'm watching so many different therapists and methodologies and stuff like that. And I guess my point is that why would military veterans who like The whole thing, I grew up, my dad was military, and that God was a big part of the military. Now that fit with my Catholic upbringing or whatever. God went with that. When you go to a therapist's office and they think that that's part of your healing is that you have to get over God, the thing that got them through whatever terror they went through in either Vietnam or the terror that they went through in Afghanistan or Iraq. And then they go to a therapist's office and the therapist is like, well, that thing that got you through Iraq, we're going to have to heal you of that now. I'm like, that's outside your purview. Like, that's outside your purview. We have a freedom of religion in this country. And it's like they don't recognize rights in there. Like, they don't recognize rights. And they really think that, like, religion is like a mental illness. And I almost, if I hadn't done all this studying in the last 2 years, I might have been on board with that. I might have actually been on board with that to a degree because I was just like higher power. I didn't know much about religion. Except now I've done all this studying and I'm like, well, I know how much religion had to do with created equal in our country and all the rights and freedoms that we have and the Bill of Rights, and that the frickin' Bill of Rights and these 10 created equals, the idea, the entire fact that we don't have slavery anymore and that we're one of the few countries in the world that doesn't have slavery anymore and has an actual idea that we are all created equal. Look, India, one color. China, one color. Africa, one color. What's unique about America? Many different colors. Many different colors. We are rare in that because, as Crowder says, we're a nation of ideas. What is that nation of ideas? I found out that's based in Galatians. I found a verse. Galatians, it says it doesn't matter if you're man or woman, you're equal. It doesn't matter if you're slave or free, you're equal. Turns out all the pagan religions had a slave race. That's were for human sacrifices. So now I have a little bit of a different opinion on religion. And I kind of think that if you go to therapy, it shouldn't be something that's healed. Because they might remove, that person's idea of created equal. So I'm sorry. I just, that's my own personal opinion now. You want to know why the person was sitting there literally ranting and raving about religion, ranting and raving about only one political party. One political party actually said an entire political party had a mental illness. I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. And then said, I wonder why military veterans, which usually belong to this political party, wonder why they don't come to treatment, why they don't seek treatment. So for those of you wondering why military veterans don't seek treatment, maybe it's because you don't have a very welcoming environment. Maybe it's because you don't think they're equal to you. Maybe it's because you think they're kids, or maybe it's because you think they're handicapped. Maybe you don't think they're their intellectual superior, maybe you don't think they're intellectually, your equal. Maybe you think they need to be healed of the thing that got them through. Maybe you think they need to change to be you. Maybe you don't see them. Maybe you don't have correct boundaries as to what it is that you're there to heal. Like PTSD, let me just be very clear as to what PTSD is. Here, for those of you guys who have PTSD or trauma, let me tell you what the goal is of PTSD. EMDR is great. I think it's better if you do TheraTappers, which is tactile and go back and forth in the brain or whatever. But let me tell you what the goal of PTSD is. And it shouldn't be just one thing. It should be a bunch of things. And it has to be with someone highly trained that actually wants to get you out and not in therapy forever. And honestly, talk therapy doesn't work all that well. It needs to be something that does, it can take forever, talk therapy. There's just a bunch of things that go into it. But here is the goal of knowing you're healed from PTSD when you go in to try and get better from PTSD. Here's the goal. If you went through trauma, let's say from a bomb exploding, the next time you're driving down the street, and something goes off, bang, right? Sorry if that got anyone, but if you hear a bang, that you are not instantly transported back. If you even start to be transported back, you can breathe and look around and be like, I'm not there. My life is not in danger. What happens with PTSD is if something's triggered, right? If you have trauma or whatever, and then you come into, let's say authority figure comes by, let's say something comes by, it triggers the trauma for you and everything goes, and all these different responses, the trauma, and those things in your brain start rewinding, and you think you're back in that trauma, and the fight or flight comes back. And you go back there. Your body is literally, your nervous system is literally transported in time, and your body literally starts acting as though it's there in time, in space, and starts acting that way. And your job in PTSD to get healed is that, nope, you're back here and you're not there. You're here in place. You know, and one of my big things was to be like, I am here and now, here and now. But severe trauma, and I had to get over it, severe for childhood trauma and things like that, that's a much, much bigger thing. Very, very huge, and it takes intense work. And in order for me to do it, I had to go through people. I had to go through numerous people. And some of those people had extreme views that were like, well, we need hit. And I just was like, all right, like I just smiled and nodded and I got through it. I let them treat me differently as though I was someone who was sick of things. And I was just like, okay, like, and I just smiled and nodded and I didn't let it leave me therapy because I had a job. I was like, their prejudices are not worth me not getting healthy. And look at who I am today. So that when I had another car accident and when I got into severe chronic pain, it didn't kill me. Like I was able to keep my mind intact. I didn't fall to pieces. I gained friends somehow, magically. I gained friends. I became stronger. I got sicker and sicker, but I had my mentality, and there are obviously things, it was a huge challenge, but can you imagine if I'd gone in without have gotten stronger? You know, without knowing so much about myself, without having become whole to begin with? You know, like it just would have been over for me, you know, it would have been over. So yeah, it's a challenge, but it was worth it. And I was just like, I get it. This person thinks that I have a major handicap. This person thinks that I have a major handicap. You will hear them all the time say the 12-step program is great. But then you get into their offices and they're just like, you know, this person just should, and the one that I hear the most often is that like atheism. And I'm like, well, atheism doesn't jibe with higher power and 12-step program. It just doesn't. And I'm just like, well, you can't have both. I don't think they see that they're asking for two different things. You know, you can't have addicts getting better on the 12-step program. And then when they come in for therapy, say, oh, by the way, like you need to be healed by getting off the 12-step program. I don't think they see the incongruity. All right, I have to go. I love you guys so much. See the videos if I have time to post the videos. And cha-cha-cha, I love you so much. And to you soldiers who have given your time and your energy, and everyone who's ever been abused or suffered trauma or been through that, like, I love you so much, and you are loved, and you are valuable, and you're worth it. You are worth the fight. No one can fight for you like you can. That's when my life changes, when I started fighting for myself. No one can fight for you like you can. Not your partner, not your husband, not your wife, not anyone, not your family. Only you can fight for yourself. Only you. And that's when your life will change. Go wherever you can. And if you find a good therapist, stick with them no matter what their personal belief system is. If they've got the goods, just take the goods and leave the crap, because you are worth it. I love you. Bye.